Welcome to Demand Better Canada. Tonight, I am making an emergency set of videos to help voters decide how to make sure that their voice is counted and the Ford government is held accountable for years of corruption and incompetence. At the moment, the Cons may win enough seats to silence most Ontarians, and only by voting for the Progressive Party, most likely to win in each of our ridings, can we stop this distortion of democracy. A vote is a small piece of power, and by working together, we can ensure that our votes matter. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 338canada.com's excellent interactive map with which we can see the specific numbers for each of the ridings that we want to look at. Next, we're going to be looking at the Golden Horseshoe. So that's the area around the end of Lake Ontario, and as you can see, it looks like a sea of blue, but that is mostly because the Conservatives are fairly popular in rural areas, even though they do nothing to serve rural people. So Niagara Falls is a riding that is currently held by the NDP, and frankly, only the NDP has a chance of actually securing this riding and keeping it from the Conservatives. The Conservatives have come a lot closer in this riding, partially because it is fairly rural. They have gotten a lot more traction in this riding than they should have. So if you're a Liberal, Green, consider voting for the NDP in that riding. The same is true of St. Catharines, where there's actually, the numbers are pretty close, but it is clear that the NDP has the lead and has a real shot at keeping this riding from falling into Conservative hands. Here in Niagara Centre, this is also a riding that's held by the NDP, but there's a chance that they might lose it to the Conservatives, and only the NDP is currently polling well enough that they would be able to keep a Conservative out of power. Always remember that you can always switch back to voting for the party of your preference later on, but right now, we are in an emergency. Ford is likely to win with only 36% of the vote. This is an utter distortion of democracy. This is not what a real democracy looks like. And if we don't vote smart, our votes are going to be misinterpreted so that Conservatives are given 100% of the power. We simply can't afford that. This is an emergency. So we need to vote smart so that our votes are counted. Niagara West is a fairly safe Conservative riding, even though they're only getting about 44% of the vote there. This is largely because the vote is perfectly split between the Liberals and the NDP, and in these cases, I'm generally either going to skip the riding, in which case, vote your preference. I'm not really going to indicate whether you should be voting Liberal or NDP. I'm primarily talking about the value of strategic voting here. So let's take a look at Hamilton. The city of Hamilton is made up primarily of 4 ridings. Hamilton East Stoney Creek is currently held by an independent who was a former NDP candidate. Now, I don't actually know the circumstances for which he was deselected by his local riding association, and I've heard good things about Paul Miller, so I'll be honest, I'm not going to weigh in too much on that. Currently, he's running as an independent and is garnering 9% of the vote, which is actually a ton for an independent, which shows that he was a pretty strong candidate. And that it might have been the wrong time for the NDP to go with a different candidate for this riding. As a result, they are currently losing by roughly 5 points to the PCs. However, they have a 4-point lead on the Liberals, so it is by far the best choice to go for voting for the NDP if you want to keep the Conservatives out of power there. As much as I'd like to, the independent Paul Miller is unlikely to win. The rest of the ridings in Hamilton, Andrea Horvath's riding in Hamilton Centre is pretty safe, so I wouldn't worry about that. Vote your preference. Hamilton Mountain, this one's a lot closer. There is a chance that the PCs could win here. I think the truly crazy thing about Hamilton East Stoney Creek is that right now, the PCs are likely to win with only 30% of the vote. That means that the other 70% of people who cast their votes in that riding will not be counted. Most of those people are voting for progressive candidates and progressive parties, but they will not be counted in the ultimate results. 100% of the riding will be represented by only one PC candidate, who is actually only representing a small fraction of the population. This is why first past the post is often called a distorted and rigged system. It's because you can win even if you don't have a lot of support. as long as the vote is split. As well, we're going to take a look at Hamilton West, Ancaster, Dundas. Now, this is the most rural riding in Hamilton, and as a result, the PCs have been able to pick up a decent amount of steam there. However, the NDP is still leading them by 3 points, so it's still the best choice if you want to stop the Conservatives. Now, finally, I can give the Liberals some love. They are generally not that popular in the southwest of Ontario, so that's why they haven't been... it's not my bias. They haven't really been showing up as popular in a lot of these ridings. But Burlington is where it changes, because they are only 3 points behind the Progressive Conservatives there. And if only a small fraction of NDP and Green voters do the smart thing and vote for the Liberal Party there, we will definitely deny the PCs another riding that they don't deserve. Taking a look at Milton is another riding where the Liberals have the best shot at beating the Conservative candidate. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. This is another one. So Oakville North and Burlington is another place where the Liberals have the best shot at beating the PCs. Oakville is a riding where the Liberals and Conservatives are in a dead heat, and the Liberals are definitely the best choice if you want to keep a Conservative out of power. So that has been a brief overview of the Golden Horseshoe and kind of West GTA landscape. If you're looking for anything that is to the west of this, it was in my Southwestern Ontario video, which you can also take a look at. I hope that you vote smart and that your vote gets counted, which is pretty difficult in our distorted democracy. Canada definitely needs to improve what it is up to and change its electoral system to something that is more fair and doesn't potentially give 100% of the power to the Conservatives for only 36% of the vote. I hope you have an excellent day. Stay beautiful, people.